Morning, Ariel. Ariel is here.
Morning.
You told everybody what?
Morning. Yeah.
Morning, everybody. Okay, good to see everybody. Okay, good morning, Joseph. Morning, Yosef. We got two Yosefs on the screen. And we have someone in the waiting room. Okay.
Morning.
Morning, everybody. Okay, we are Mem Aleph Amen Aleph. We are in the middle of the page, and I just want to interesting to note we spoke yesterday from the Yalkut Yosef, which from the Shulchan Aruch, that said that if you have the fruit of Eretz Yisrael among the bunch, right? You have apples, oranges, and the fruit of the land of Israel. The fruit of the land of Israel will be the one. If it's one bracha, if it's a question of I'm making a bar creates, which one do I say the bracha on? The fruit that Israel is known for, that is the one that you say the bracha on. That would be the first preference. That's what we said yesterday. And it's just interesting to note the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is the code of Jewish law, the Ashkenaz Kitzur Shulchan Aruch from Shlomo Gan Street. He says, he goes with the other opinion that says if they both have the same brachot, even though one of them is from the 7 species of the land of Israel, if you like better the apple, then you would go with the apple over the 7 species of the land of Israel. That's his opinion. So I just wanted to share his opinion. According to the Chafetz Chaim, he disagrees. The Chafetz Chaim agrees with the way the Yalkut Yosef, the Yavad Yosef says. The Chafetz Chaim would say that you would do on the Shivas Haminim over something that comes from the land of Israel. That would take preference over an apple. And according to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it says the apple will take preference over if you like the apple better. I just wanted to show there's 2 opinions, and maybe that's why I wonder if there are people that would say the bracha on the apple instead of on the other Shivas Haminim on Rosh Hashanah. If they would say a bracha on the apple, they're following the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, at least that opinion of the Ashkenaz opinion. That would be the according to his opinion. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. The Gemara says the following. We are on Mem Aleph Amud Aleph, and the Gemara says Bishlama. It's about 3/4 of the way down. The first word of the line is Kishe'ein b'choseim shavo. The Gemara says Bishlama Lamandi Ama. You know what? Maybe it'll be better if we go back a few lines. Pligi bar of Ami Rav Yitzchak. See the first word of the line is of Ami. Pligi bar of Ami Rav Yitzchak. Mr. Haber, you have it. Ami and Rav Yitzchak. Okay. Pligi bar of Ami Rav Yitzchak. If Ami and Rav Yitzchak argue in the first morning, Shmuel and Avram. I don't know if I said hello to everybody before.
Good morning.
Okay, so Pligi bar of Ami and Rav Yitzchak. We have a machlokes and Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak. What's the machlokes? Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Charama machloket b'shebachasem shavo. The machloket of whether you go after the one that you like the best, or you go after the one that's from the 7 species of the land of Israel. That's the machlokes because they're both the same bracha. Rav Yehuda Sava min Shiva Adif. Rav Yehuda holds that something from the land of Israel that takes precedence. Rabbanan Savri and Rabbanan say min Chaviv Adif. The Rabbanan hold that you got to go after the one that you like better. That's the machlok. That's the argument. Like we just said, the machlokas between the Chafetz Chaim and the Mishnah Berurah. the Chafetz Chaim and the Chafetz Chaim and the Shulchan Aruch, whether you go after the Shivat Haminim, or you go the 7 species in the land of Israel, or you go after the one you like better. But b'chashasayim shavot, ain't a shavot. But again, the Rav Yehuda Sava min shiva adif. Rabbi Yehuda holds you go after the species of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbanan Savri min chaviv. Rabbanan say no, it's better to honor the bracha by going after the one you like better. But when the brachot are not the same, one's a eitz, let's say, and one's a dama, everybody requires 2 brachot. You'll have to say 2 brachot, one on the apple, one on the pineapple, and we discussed yesterday that if there are 2 different brachos, if it's an eitz and adama, it would see you technically you could do what you want, and some say you should preferably go after the one you like better. For eitz and adama, you should go after the one that you like better. And Tosfos points out the question, by the way. Tosfos says, we had a story earlier that it says if you have a hadama and a shahakol, even if you like the shahakol better than the hadama, you still go after the hadama. If you have a mezonot and a shahakol, you go after the mezonot, even though you might like the shahakol better. So we find it's a concept when a bracha, and why do we say shahakol? If you have shahakol and you have hadama, hadama goes first. It's because shahakol is a more general. Shahakol is a more general bracha. It's not so specific. And when something is not so specific, a bracha that's more specific is a stronger bracha. We want you to say, or it's considered a more. It's better to say that takes preference because you're more specific on your thanks. You're not just saying a general thanks. By the way, sometimes in marriage we have a chatan over here. Sometimes you hear that, Ariel. It's not good enough just to say a general praise to your wife. You got to sometimes be specific of what you're praising her about, right, Mr. Abra? It's not enough a generalization. You got to be more specific. What do I mean? If you say you're such a nice, you're so nice, whatever, but you're expressing how she's very nice. Don't just say you're very nice. All right? You got to give examples. You got to be specific, so to speak. So, but yet Tosfos says that concept is only when you have a shahakol, which is a very broad bracha, contrast with the hadama. Hadama is a much more specific than when you have shahakol in this side of the ring. You have hadama on the other side of the ring.
Morning.
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 Hadama is much more specific than shahakol. Shahakol in the Ebed Varo means everything is created with Hashem's word. But you're not talking anything about the product. It's more, you're not focusing on where this product comes from. When you say Bori Priyadama, it's much more specific. You're talking about the product. But when it's a question of Bori Priya Eitz or Bori Priyadama, even though Bori Priya Eitz is more specific, when you go ahead and you say when you say a bracha Bori Priya Eitz, you're thanking Hashem for the fruit of the tree. And when you say Bori Priyadama on the pineapple, you're thanking Hashem for the fruit of the ground, right? So now the fruit of the ground is not so much different than saying the fruit of a tree. Meaning if a guy goes ahead and it's not such a, it's maybe a fruit of a tree might be a little bit more, it's very similar in being, in the specificity of being specific. It's not a generalization bracha, like everything is created, shakol niya bidvaro. This is considered a specific, even though it might not be as specific as the fruit of a tree, bracha, that's very specific, more than the fruit of a ground, because the truth of the matter is, a tree is also a fruit of the ground, but it's not only a fruit of the ground, it's also the fruit of a tree, right? That's why if you said a Bori Priyadama by mistake on a fruit of a tree, you get credit. So the Bori Priya Eitz is considered more specific than Bori Priyadama, But the level of difference of how it's a very minute difference of how specific it is by saying Borei Priya Eitz over saying Borei Priya Dama. So therefore, that difference of Borei Priya Eitz or Borei Priya Dama is not enough to say that if I have an apple and I have a strawberry, or I have an apple and I have pineapple, that the apple bracha, which is a eitz, should be said first, because it's not it's not so much more specific than the hadama. But when it comes to hadama against shakol, the eitz against shakol, that's much more specific, the eitz versus the shakol. And therefore, if I have two items in front of me, one bracha is shakol, and one bracha is eitz, or one bracha is shakol, one's hadama, then we will not say go after the one you like better to say the bracha first. We go after the fact that one bracha is more specific and that's more powerful. I just wanted to, that's the Tosfos points that point out. We didn't get to that yesterday. I wanted to clarify that today. And similarly,
so Shakol comes the last.
Shakol comes less under all circumstances. Even if you like you're having ice cream, you like the ice cream better than having ice cream and French fries. You like the ice cream better than the French fries. You make the bracha on the French fries first. So you're having, even though you like the ice cream better. But when you have hadama and ha'etz, and you like the hadama better, and there are those that say you go after the hadama in that case.
It's because the other brachot are more specific.
Even though the hadama is not, hadama against shahakol, hadama is more specific. But hadama against ha'etz is not considered. If I have two different foods, it's not considered so much more specific that the ha'etz would take precedence. The question is when you have ha'etz.
So which one?
You understand, Mike? You have two different foods. One food is ha'etz, one food is hadama. Do I say the bracha? What I say? There is the opinion out there. There is the bahag that says yes, you say on the ha'etz first. A lot of people know that. A lot of people know I say ha'etz before hadama. But that's if they're both equal. If you like them equally, but if you like the hadama more than the ha'etz, then the halacha seems like that you should go after the hadama. What do you say? Watermelon. And favorite fruit, yes. Yes. If you have watermelon and then you have watermelon and you have grapes, you like the watermelon more than the grapes, you'll make a dama on the watermelon and then a Borei Priya Eitz on the grapes. Is everybody agreeing to that? That's what the Shulchan Aruch, that's what the Shulchan Aruch writes. The Shulchan Aruch writes, we'll get that out again in the Shulchan Aruch. Let's see the language of the Shulchan Aruch, because it's nice to read the language. It says in the Shulchan Aruch the following. Not everybody agrees to that, but the main halacha would be, the Shulchan Aruch says the following. If you have something that the brachos are not the same, like your case, Ariel, the watermelon and the grapes, and you like the watermelon better, so, and he gives the case radish and olive. Radish is a damadi, olive is an eitz. So the first opinion in the Shulchan Aruch is, he says you could do whatever you want. If there are two different brachos, eitz and adama, do what you want. Whatever you want, you could go. Go anywhere you want. And the second opinion is that you have to do the one that you like better. So the first opinion is you could do whatever you want when hadama and a eitz. And the second opinion is you go after the one that you like better, even though that might not be from the Shivat Haminim. Okay? And now in the way they bring it down for the Chafetz Chaim, the Chafetz Chaim says, if they're not the same bracha, you go after the one hadam and ha'etz. You go after the one you like the best. That's how you should go.
If you have a question,
yes.
If you have oats and you have olives, would the blessing over the grain take precedence over the one of the 7 fruits of Israel?
Okay, so again, the grapes is one of the 7 fruits of Israel. But mezonot, we say if you have mezonot and the 7th mezonot comes first. The bracha mezonot comes before the bracha eitz adama. Mezonot is a much stronger bracha. Let's see I'm gonna look at the Yalkut Yosef and read. I brought the wrong volume here. We have the volume here. Reish Yud Aleph. Let's see what he says. He says,
Morning, everyone. Good morning.
morning, everybody. Morning, Akiva.
Morning, Akiva. Morning, Mike. Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I have to see. 1 second. Yeah. He said, I mean, mezonot should be the first thing. If you have mezonot and shehakol, mezonot hadama, mezonot eitz, I would say the mezonot goes first. All right. Okay, let's continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, "L'charama after she'ein berachotayim shavot nami machluket." One says that they're arguing even when they don't have the same, when they're not the same bracha. When you have an eitz and dama, there's an opinion that says there's there's an argument, and one opinion says you got to go ahead and go after the shivat haminim if they're not the same bracha. And one says you go after the one that you like the best. So the Gemara says, if you say that they have machloket, they're arguing when they have morning Sammy, but they have the same bracha. So Shapir, I understand the machloket. If they're arguing when they have the same bracha, so I understand if it's a eitz and a eitz. So there's a machloket. One opinion says you go after the one you like better, and one opinion says you go after the shivat haminim. That's the machloket. But when they're 2 different brachot, and then you have. But if it's 2 different foods, one you say a borei beitz, and one you say a borei be'adama. What the Gemara wants to know if there are 2 different brachot, one's a eitz and one's a dama. So what is the machloket? Everybody should hold. If one's a eitz, one's a dama, everyone should hold. You have to, like Ariel's case. If you have eitz and a dama, you have to say 2 brachot. You have to say ha'etz and you have to say adama. So the Gemara wants to understand what should be the reason of Rabbi Yehuda that Rabbi Yehuda would hold, according to this opinion, that it's a eitz and adama. Rabbi Yehuda says that the one from the shivat haminim is better. There's something unique about the shivat haminim. What's unique about the shivat haminim? If I have in front of me a grapes, which is from the 7 species of Israel. I have in front of me watermelon, which is not from the species of Israel. I have to say a bracha both on the grape and both on the watermelon. So what does it mean that the shivat haminim is better? In what way is the shivat haminim better? When you have both of the same bracha, meaning if I have grapes and I have an orange, grapes and an apple, so you want to tell me the shivat haminim, Rabbi Yehuda says it's better because if you're making one bracha, say the bracha on the what? On the shivat haminim, and that's the halacha. Say it on the shivat haminim. But if I have 2 different foods here, have a great day. I have the apple, I have the grapes, and I have the watermelon. So I have to say a bracha on both the grapes and both on the watermelon. So in what way is the grape better than the what? Than the watermelon? The Gemara answered, you know how it's better? That you have to say it first. We have according to this opinion in the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda, but the Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why the halacha seems to follow the Chachamim, which is the majority opinion that says, first of all, this even according to this second opinion that they're arguing in this case, it's the Chachamim say you do not go after the species of Israel when it's two different brachot. And again, and we in the first language of the Gemara, again, there's two opinions of the Gemara. When there's two different brachot, the Eitz and Adama, is there any opinion that says you say Borei Pri Eitz first? If it's two different brachot. The first opinion of the Gemara was everybody agrees you do what you want. And the second opinion says, no, there's still a dispute when there's two different brachot. So the halacha seems to follow the first opinion in the Gemara that when there's two different brachot, you don't need to give preference between an Eitz and Adama. Right, that's what the Gemara, you don't need to give preference, and some say it's better to go after the one that you like better. When it's an Eitz Adama, you go after the one you like better. So the Gemara says, what's the preference? The Gemara answers when it's two different brachot. The Gemara, my pligi, Amar Rav Yirmiyah lahagdim, the order. Which one should I say? What bracha should I say first? The Eitz or the Adama? The Amar Rav Yosef, Yitem Rav Yitzchak, we find this concept of earlier one. There's a concept of a hierarchy of what comes first and what comes second. Kol hamugdam b'posuk zeh mugdam lebracha. Anything that is earlier in this pasuk, when the Torah writes about the seven species, the order that it's written, number one, number two, number three, it's nothing coincidence. Hashem writes Eretz, Chita, Sorah, Gefen, Rimon, the pasuk, the order of the pasuk is important to know which one is considered a more honorable, a better fruit of the land of Israel, and therefore it would get the honor. Kol hamugdam b'pasuk zeh mugdam lebracha. If you want to know, you have the species of Israel in front of you, and you want to know, I have olives, I have grapes, I have pomegranates, I have figs. I want to know what bracha do I say? What bracha do I say? Which one? I'm going to say one bracha. I'm going to say one Borei Pri Eitz. Which one should I say the Borei Pri Eitz on? So we say the one that's earlier in the pasuk. When the Torah, you need to know your chumash to know which one is written early in the pasuk. When the Torah describes in Sefer Devarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu describes the great land that Hashem is bringing us, the Jewish people to, it's described as a land that has wheat, that has barley, and has those five, the pomegranates and dates and the olives and the figs and so on and so forth. And whichever is written earlier it takes precedence. So therefore, let's say the pasuk says wheat, barley, right? And then it says the gefen, it says grapes, and then it says figs, and then it says pomegranates, and then it says eretz zeh shem redvash. Take that. Then it says olives and honey, which is really referring to dates, olives and dates. Now, the Gemara later on is going to say that even if you look at the pasuk, the date is listed last, but it's not last because there's the word eretz written twice in the pasuk, and whatever is closer to the eretz is considered. That's considered how you start counting which comes first and which comes second. So it started out Eretz Chita Usorah V'Gefen. So let's say in the pasuk we have wheat, barley, Gefen. Gefen is grapes. Is listed number 3 on the all-time list. Number 3. But when it comes to the Eretz at the end of the pasuk, it says Eretz Zeis Shemen Udvash. So the in the second part of the pasuk, the olives is written right next to the word Eretz. So olives is number one, is listed first after Eretz at the end of the pasuk. Grapes is listed number 3 from Eretz in the beginning of the pasuk. So therefore, the olives will be the winner. If it's a question of olives and grapes, who comes first? The olives will be the winner. Similarly, the dates are listed number 2 from Eretz at the end of the pasuk. Dates would be number 2, following, and also would precede the grapes. So we got the olives, then you got the dates, okay? And by the way, if you want to, I made a little, try to note how to remember what comes first and what comes second. The best thing is you have the pasuk in front of you, but you can make a little, sometimes you can make things from memory. The first thing is we have it's a little joke if you want to remember. The first thing is the olives. Olive is to live. The first thing every person needs to live. I live. And then comes, you want to live, Hashem wants you to get married. So the second you got a date. So that's the second one is the second one is dates. The third thing is wine. It says that we look at a couple as Intvei Gefen, as Intvei Gefen. When a couple gets married, we look at it's compared to the grapes of the grapes of a vine. So therefore, after you have the I live, is the olive, then you date, then you go ahead and you have the then you have, or you could say, then you have the grapes of the vine, and then you have the figs, because you get married, and that hopefully you figure it out. You have all the figs, and then after you got the figs, you got the pomegranates. Hashem should give you a lot of blessing, a lot of children, a lot of seeds like the pomegranate. It's just a little way to remember it. Okay, everyone could use their own ways of figuring out how to remember the order. But the easiest thing is to remember the order is to just know the pasuk, just know where to put the eretz in the pasuk and the whole pasuk. Okay. Good morning, Akiva. So
Rabbi, where's the pasuk, please?
Morning.
The pasuk says eret. You want me to tell you where to find it?
No, but the Gemara, it's not written here in the Gemara.
Yeah, it's written in the Gemara. Here it is. You ready? Whatever comes early in the pasuk, Mr. Haber, we're back in the language of the Gemara. Mukdam the bracha, shenema eretz. The first word of the line is eretz. Morris, you have it? Eretz chita. You see the word eretz in the pasuk, Mr. Haber? The first word of the line is eretz. Eretz chita usora, a land of wheat and barley. The gefen. So gefen is grapes, but that's listed number 3 from eretz. You see, it's number 3 from eretz.
Yeah.
Te'ina is 4. It's figs from eretz. Rimon is pomegranate. It's listed number 5 from eretz. But then the pasuk continues. Eretz. It says there at eretz again. Eretz shemen, which means oil refers to olives. Dvash, honey, refers to the dates. So therefore, you see the second eretz, Mike, in the pasuk?
Yes.
And zeis, shemen, oil, is closest to the eretz. So out of the 5 fruits, the pasuk has 5 fruits and 2 grains. In the 5 fruits, let's focus on the 5 fruits. The 5 fruits, you got to know which is closest to the eretz. And the olives, oil. Remember, everyone knows oil is a big commodity. Everyone knows oil is the most precious thing in the Middle East is oil. So the olives is first. Oil, that's the first thing. I live. You got to be alive to do great things. That's the first thing. We had a mashgiach, Rabbi Birnbaum, Zechat Tzaddik Levracha, from the Moshe Feinstein's yeshiva, who was the mashgiach. He would say, Bereshit bara. The first thing is Briyut HaGuf. He was a play on words. Bara means Hashem created the world, And Briut HaGuf means healthy. First thing, we need to be alive. We need to be healthy. Because then when you're healthy, then you have opportunity. It's very easy, much easier for you to do everything you need to do. That's the first thing. So that's the pasuk, Mike. So that's why we go. That's why oil is first. Olives is first, closest to the eretz. Is that clear, Mike? You see that? You see the order?
Yes. What's chita, Rabbi?
Chita is wheat. Chita is wheat, like chitim is wheat.
So chita is also can be considered first.
Right. So that's a good point. So right. So it says now it's chita. Now we all know we would do wheat. We do wheat over, wheat, mizonot comes first over other things, right? If you have mizonot and you have some other food of a fruit, you'll go with the mizonot first. The question you could ask is, we have sorah, which is barley, which is written number 2 from Eretz, and the olives is written number 1 from Eretz. So if it's a question of barley and if it's barley against olives, who's the winner? So I think the point, since barley is from the mizonot family, still mizonot will still win. The barley, if the barley was cooked and you're making and you're saying
That's why
mizonot, you would go ahead and you would say the mizonot first.
is that why we do mezonot? That's probably why we do mezonot first, because the order is mezonot.
Right, mizonot is first, and wheat. And if I have wheat in front of me, and that's also if I have grain. I have pasta made from wheat and pasta made from oats. Or I'm eating oats. I'm eating wheat. I go on the bracha on the wheat first. The wheat is in the mizonot, correct? So, and that's what the Yalkut Yosef says. Mizonot first. Wheat mizonot comes before barley mizonot. Well, wheat bread comes before barley bread. Then comes the olives, like we said. We said I live first, then you got a date. After you got a date, you should find the right shidduch. You go with the grapes. Inve agefen, bin agef, you got the grapes. And then once you got married, then you figure things out. Then you go with the figs. And the last thing is the pomegranates. You should have a lot of seeds and a lot of children and a lot of mitzvot and live a life full with mitzvot. And that's the order that he says. Okay, you got it? Okay. Now we continue in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Upliga de Rav Chanan. And this statement that we just said about the order of the brachot, that this pasuk of Eretz, Chita, Usorah is coming now. We're using this pasuk to teach us the order of the brachot, argues on a different rabbi. Because we have Rav Chanan. You have it, Mike? The Amar Rav Chanan. You have it? Rav Chanan said, Kol ha-pasuk kulo. The first word of the line is kol. The whole pasuk, lishiurim ne'emar, is to tell us, why does the Torah have to identify all the fruits, these special fruits of the land of Israel? What is the need for the pasuk to tell us all these fruits? You want to tell me that Israel has a lot of beautiful things, we know amazing things, amazing resources. Israel has everything is in the land of Israel. You can find there's a lot of great things in Israel. And so why does the Torah have to specify, this is the land of pomegranates, the land of dates, and the land of olives, and the land of... What's the necessity for him, that Moshe Rabbeinu, to tell the Jewish people about these qualities of the land, of these specific fruits? And it could be, why, what's the necessity of, there's no extra word in the Torah, and just say the land that has so many great fruits, the land of amazing fruits, and that would be good enough. What's the necessity to identify the fruits by name? So the first opinion says, I identify the fruits by name because you need to know which fruit you say a bracha first. That's what it's alluding to, that law. Which fruit I go, if I say bracha, which takes priority? But this rabbi says no. You know what we need to know about these fruits? Because these fruits play a great role in the Torah. How does these fruits play a great role in the Torah? Because there are many laws that are connected to the fruits. There are many laws about shiurim, about a size. Let's say, for instance, if a person eats talking the positive, you have to eat matzah on Pesach. How much matzah do you need to eat on Pesach? You need to know about an olive. There's an olive, there's something called an olive. The size of an olive, a kazayit. If a person eats not kosher, chas v'shalom, and he was warned, and there's witnesses, how much do they need to eat in order to violate, to get malkut, lashes, kazayit? Yom Kippur, the Torah says about Yom Kippur, you have to, you're supposed to not eat on Yom Kippur. How much is supposed to, it says, how much, at what point would you violate Yom Kippur? What size eating, if a person eats on Yom Kippur, the Torah says it carries karet. Karet, one of the terrible parts, karet, but the Rambam says they lose the next world. How much do they need to eat on Yom Kippur to lose the next world? You know how much the size is? A date. A date. So therefore the Torah writes the word date in the Torah, because that's important to know. The date has a special role regarding Jewish life. Regarding Yom Kippur, the size is a date. And you want to know about, and the Gemara is going to show you all the 7 things that are listed in the Torah are connected for measurements. Let's say on Shabbat, the Torah says you're not allowed to carry, one of the melachot of Shabbat is carrying, right? Carrying is one, unless you have a place that makes an eruv, right? If you carry in a public domain, interesting to note, we have some East people who are living on the East Side on the screen, or used to live on the East Side, that are on the screen on the Lower East Side. Ramosha Feinstein lived on the Lower East Side. He said you can't make an eruv in Manhattan. That's his opinion. Maybe it's a little controversial where I'm standing here and I'm talking about that. But that's what Feinstein held. And Moshe Feinstein in Manhattan, not only in the Lower East Side, he held Manhattan, you can't make an eruv. And there will be a prohibition of carrying on Shabbat. Biblical prohibition of carrying, according to Moshe Feinstein. That's his opinion on Shabbat. So at what point, how much does a person carry in order for it to be considered that he violated the prohibition on a Torah level, that he would be chayev, in violation of Shabbat, chayev skila? So it's a grogeris. It's a fig, a dried fig, the size of a fig. If you carry a amount of food that's the size of a dried fig, but if you carry something less than that, smaller than that, then you did not meet the criteria to consider that he would get that punishment of skila if he carried less than the dried fig. So the fig has a very big role, because the fig has to do with Shabbat. The date has to do with Yom Kippur. The olive has to do with many cases, Pesach and other things. So every one that's listed in this grouping of these fruits, we think he's not just listing fruits. These fruits of the land of Israel are connected to every day in Jewish life, in prohibitions, or every day, or some Yom Tovim or Shabbat. And it's interesting to realize that, and I presume the idea is Hashem made Israel. The best fruits of Israel Israel and the Torah are directly connected. They're not independent. The land of Israel is all about the holiness of the land of Israel. The land of Israel was given that we should keep the Torah in the midst of the land of Israel, right? That's the point of the land of Israel. It's a holy place that we should keep. And so many mitzvahs of the Torah are specific to the land of Israel. So therefore, the land of Israel is about Torah. It's all about Torah. So therefore, the 7 fruits of the land of Israel that Israel is known for are all about connected to Torah teachings. How do you like that, everybody? It's not that it happens to be these are the 7 best fruits of the land of Israel. Yes, beautiful palm trees, beautiful dates. You know why these are the 7 fruits of Israel? Because these 7 fruits are needed to be known for us in our life as a Jew, because they apply to us in halacha, in Gemara, and therefore Hashem made these are the fruits of the land of Israel. How do you like that? Right? It's not, this is, everyone likes that. You like that idea. So when you look at a date that comes from Israel, you're not just looking, here's a date from the land of Israel. This date represents halacha. It's from the land of Israel. It represents law. There's laws, special laws that have to do specifically to a date about Shabbat. Or, I mean, I'm sorry, the date is about, its date is Yom Kippur. Shabbat is the fig. The fig is the dried fig for Shabbat. About the shear, the size. Look at the Gemara. And the Gemara now is going to go through each one, where each one of the 7 species plays a role in Jewish life and Jewish law. The Gemara says that's the purpose of the Torah writing all 7. Not even to teach us it plays these 7 fruits play a role in Jewish law. The Gemara says, what's the 7? The Gemara says, Chita, it says about wheat. What's important to where does wheat come to play? So the Gemara says it's not hanichnas lebayis hamenuga. If a guy goes into a house that has, let's say that was filled with leprosy, right? And as a result of that house was with leprosy, and anybody who enters that house will become tamei. You become tamei if you enter the house that's considered that has leprosy in the house, that the walls of the house are filled with leprosy. Now, if you enter the house, the kelav al kasefav, and you entered the house and you're holding your jacket on top of your shoulder. You're not wearing your jacket in the normal way. You're holding the jacket. And the sandalav, the tabosav yadav. And you have your shoes, you're holding your shoes in your hand. You're not wearing your shoes. You're holding your shoes, or you have a ring. And you're wearing a ring. Instead of wearing the ring, you're holding the ring. You got the ring in the box. You came from the jeweler and you're holding the ring in the box, and you're not wearing it. So what is the law? Hu vehein tameim miyad. The person and those items who entered this place that was tamei, they become tamei right away. Because the pasuk says, Haba el habayit. The pasuk says, if you come into the house, you become tamei. So we say that in this situation, you become tamei, and the items that you were carrying become tamei right away, contaminated right away. However, hayolavush kelav. If you were wearing your clothing in the normal way, you're wearing the jacket. Uvisandelav beraglav, you're wearing your shoes. Vidabosav, and you have your ring on your finger. So hu tamei, you become tamei right away. But vehein tohurim, your ring that's on your finger, your clothing that's on your body, and they become tamei. They have to wait. You have to spend enough time in the room that you could eat a half a loaf of bread. If you spent enough time, let's say the half a loaf of bread was considered the size of a meal, and if you go ahead and you spent enough time in the house that you could b'dei achilas pras, you can eat the half a loaf. Now, what's called b'dei achilas pras? So some say it's 7 minutes. That's what if you spent, let's say, that amount of time in the house, then those items will become tamei. Now, what and why is that? Why is there a difference between wearing the clothing, wearing the ring, or carrying the clothing and carrying the ring? So Rashi explains, the pasuk says, when you enter the house, you become tamei, and it doesn't say that your clothing becomes tamei. The first says, it says you come to the house, you become tamei. And then the pasuk says, then the pasuk says, if you eat in the house, then your garments become tamei. So what happened? One pasuk says, when you enter the house, you become tamei and no problem with your garments. One pasuk says, if you eat in the house, then your garments become tamei. So what is that? What's the difference between you eating the house and entering the house? So the Gemara says it means like this. Eating in the house means if you spent enough time that you could have eaten a meal, then your garments become tamei. But if you don't spend enough time that you can eat a meal, then your garments will not come tamei. But that's if you go, that's normal, the way you wear a garment. People, when the Torah is talking about the normal case, you wear the garment, you're wearing the jacket. But if you're not wearing it, so then it's just like yourself. The same way when you're walking in, you become tamei. Also, when you go ahead and your garments that you're carrying, if you're holding a ring, not wearing the ring, they will also become tamei right away. The only time they become tamei, they need a certain amount of time, is if you're wearing it in the normal way. And now, an amount of time, if you stay there enough time, you could have eaten a half a loaf of bread. What type of bread? There's wheat bread, there's barley bread. Which type of bread? Some breads you eat fast, you can eat faster. Some breads takes longer to eat. Some breads are heavier, some breads are lighter. So the Gemara says, what bread? Patchitim. That's why you need to know about what type of bread, if you spend enough time in the room, in the house that has leprosy in the house. And we're saying if you spend enough time there, your garments that you're wearing will become tamei. How much time? To eat a half a loaf of bread. What type of bread? Wheat bread. That's why we need to know wheat. Patchitim, which is eaten fast, for low patzaurim, and not barley bread takes longer to eat. So therefore it's the amount of time to eat wheat bread. And the Gemara says, Mesav v'ochlim. And we're talking about enough time that when you could sit, when you could recline, when you're reclining, you're not moving here and there. You're in a very specific position, and therefore you can eat it very fast because you're not moving around. You're leaning on your side. Biliftan. And you're eating the amount of time it would take you to eat this bread, being reclining, if you would eat it with something that goes together with bread, some sort of dipping or some sort of relish that you would eat together with bread. If you eat this item with the bread, it helps the bread go down faster. Because, when you eat bread by itself, let's say if you have cream cheese will make it easier for you to eat the bread because you have some other thing helping you eat the bread. It gives you extra taste to the bread. So that's why we need chita. Chita, why the Torah mentions wheat as the 7th species, to teach you that law of sarat, of leprosy. There's a law in the Torah that deals with leprosy, that if you're wearing clothing, your clothing will become contaminated if you spend a certain amount of time in the house. When you walk into the house, you become tummy right away. What about your clothing? You have to spend a certain amount of time. How much time? To eat a certain amount of bread. What type of bread? Wheat bread. So that's why we need to know bachita. We'll see tomorrow. We'll continue tomorrow. The other 6. Why does the Torah tell us the other? Why do we need to know about barley? Where does barley play a role in religious life, in religious law? Stay tuned for tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Everybody for joining in.
Good day.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. And I see smiles. I love smiles, by the way. I love to see
Thank you, Rabbi.
smiles.
Thank you.